And welcome back to the second Ood win. I was going to say third. I'm tired. Welcome back to the second Ood win of the day. Obviously, I didn't do yesterday, so I put out 2 today instead. I was just tired, just didn't have the energy for it. It's been a long week, frankly. We've been having a lot of heat, and I live in Massachusetts. We've been having a lot of hot days. I don't handle the heat well. I'm a cold weather guy myself, and I haven't been sleeping the best last couple of days. So all that combined together has really made me just exhausted. But still, get him out there for you guys. Don't worry, I'm not in terrible shape. I just need some rest. Anyway, this one comes to us from the Great Goldo, who asked the question, who won a fight, Freddy Krueger or the Headless Horseman? Now, it all depends on what version of the Headless Horseman you're talking about. We're talking about the original Sleepy Hollow one, the animated one, the one from the movie, the one from the TV series, who's technically the Horseman of the Apocalypse. For the sake, we're just kind of making an amalgamation minus the TV series one. The general lore of the Headless Horseman. He is, if I'm remembering that correctly, though, he is a specter. He's obviously a individual who lost his head. In the movie, he's a war-hungry monster, but not an actual monster, mind you, but like a war-hungry monster of a human being who just loved fighting and, he's a conqueror. Even had pointy teeth. But he eventually got, his head cut off, but cursed by a witch. And obviously he roamed kind of like as a specter, but he had a physical form. Because he lacked a head, you really couldn't be killed. You had to find his head to be killed. You reattach that, and then you could actually kill him again properly. With Freddy Krueger, we already know his backstory. He was a child predator and murderer who the families of the victims took revenge on, burned him alive. But he lived on in, what was it? Which one was that? Freddy's Dead. Which one? I think it's Dream Wars, Dream Master, Dark Child. Okay, it was the sixth. That was the Freddy's Dead is the sixth one. I always forget which. It's a nowhere near as long a franchise, surprisingly, as the Friday the 13th franchise, but they still had a lot of movies in there. It's to find out in Dream Wars they made deals with dream demons. I don't know. Movies. And basically he could keep coming back no matter what. You had to bring him into the real world to kill him. And I think it was it wasn't the same like Blood of a Voorhees thing that you had to kill Jason with. It was something dumb. The dream demons, they're the ones who gave me this job. As he put it. You had to basically, I can't remember exactly how he killed them, but essentially he would deal with dream demons. He could basically exist in the dream world and do whatever the hell he wanted. Like, he was on pure, like, you couldn't beat him in the dream world. You could try, and people were able to fight to a certain degree, and fight him to a certain degree, but ultimately he would win in the dream world. You had to bring him into the real world almost always in order to beat him. There were other ways that you were able to beat him, technically. But it was always temporarily. You always had to bring him into the real world. There was only like a few times they actually ever really brought him into the real world to kill him. First movie, Freddy's Dead. Technically, New Nightmare, the Freddy in that technically isn't even the Freddy. Isn't really Freddy Krueger. He's a demon, takes the form of Freddy. But technically in the reboot, but he was still around. It's a weird circumstance you get to do that. Bring him into the real world, though, gives him a physical body. He's still subject to the rules of mortality, basically. At very minimum, you'll keep him from coming back for a little while. But that being said, he still has a level of power in the real world, which is odd. Particularly, like, we find out he does feed on, like, the souls of his victims. He keeps them stored inside them and power him up. And you can bring that into the real world. So he can still do some things like pyrokinesis. There's some level of reality warping he has, but nowhere near the level he has in the, like, his dream power is near infinite. That's the thing. Whereas it's very limited in the real world, but he still has it. So, and technically speaking, you can get so tired that he actually can influence you in the real world as well. So, if these two met in a combat, what would happen? Well, the problem here is that I don't think that Headless Horseman the Headless Horseman, frankly, doesn't need to sleep. So, it's one of those things where this fight, if it took place in the dream world, Freddy would clearly win. But the problem is the Headless Horseman being kind of just a specter who just shows up and wanders the countryside. doesn't need to sleep. He might rest, but it's not like he might just kind of like sit around doing nothing and kind of just, bide his time. But he doesn't need to sleep because he's supernatural in that sense. Same like Freddy. Freddy doesn't need to sleep. Jason doesn't need to sleep. Even though technically being dead, men say, "You've just been sleeping, honey." No, he wasn't. He was dead. So that's why he was sleeping. Michael doesn't need to sleep. As far as I know, Michael doesn't sleep. That's actually a good question because for these three guys, technically speaking, Michael's still technically human. And as far as I know, he's still because we know they rebooted everything again with the remake of the Halloween, or with the sequel to Halloween, set that many years later, which I very much like that movie. And even so, I mean, does Michael need to eat and sleep? I think he needs to still eat and sleep on some level. Like when he got burnt, which one was it? The fourth one where he got shot, and then in the fifth one, he basically wound up being cared for a year. Technically speaking, being in the coma, that's technically sleeping. So Michael technically needs to sleep. Anyway, point being, these guys don't need to sleep. So the fact is, this fight couldn't take place in the dream world because he couldn't sleep. So the fight has to then take place in the real world. And in the real world, if the horseman's on his horse, then Freddy's screwed because he's just going to come running and chop Freddy's head off, and that's the end of it. But if the fight does take place on even ground, he's the guy's going to come with a sword. And he's pretty much faster with a sword than Freddy with his glove. But Freddy's pretty quick, so he can move out of the way, slice him a bit, move out of the way, slice him a bit. But unfortunately, he's going to be a bit more of a fighter than, say, Jason is. Jason's just a guy with a freaking machete. Now, if a little bit of reality warping that Freddy still has comes into play, you might see the argument being made that Freddy will win the fight. But it all depends on what level he can still manipulate reality. Excuse me. If he can't manipulate reality to a huge degree, then it's really not going to matter that much. He might be able to set the horseman on fire. He might be able to make some trees come and grab the horseman. Ultimately, the horseman's just going to smack out of that eventually. He's got a blade on him, so he'll... and even if he, say, strings him up Evil Dead style, just trees grab the horseman, just keep him bound like that, Freddy can't kill the horseman, at least not with the tools he has on call. If you could theoretically blow up the horseman, that might work, but we don't know we've never seen someone try to do that. So ultimately, I've got to go with the horseman on this. Horseman's just going to outlast Freddy in the grounds of where this fight takes place. Again, if for some reason the horseman were to be asleep and dreaming, then Freddy wins that fight. Freddy wins that fight 100% of the time because there are individuals who could beat Freddy in a dreamscape. Absolutely, there are. I think Darkrai, frankly, when I put Darkrai against Freddy Krueger, I'm not going to say who ultimately won that fight, but Darkrai is someone who could definitely put up a fight in the dreamscape because that's the nature of that Pokemon. Characters who have abilities far more powerful overall than Freddy does could easily, anyone who's magically based could theoretically take Freddy on in the dreamscape. Anyone who's already got abilities beyond that, like a healing factor individual, like a Wolverine, could theoretically take him on in dreamscape because no matter what Freddy does to him, he's just going to keep regenerating. That doesn't mean Freddy. Trust me, I have a Wolverine Freddy one somewhere down the line, so don't worry, that will eventually happen if you want that fight. But that doesn't mean Wolverine ultimately wins. It just means he could fight Freddy in the dreamscape. The Horseman ain't one of those individuals. So, now that being said, the Horseman doesn't really have any fear to play off of on Freddy. So, or for Freddy to exploit. Freddy's powers do partly come from exploiting the fear of others. Their fear gives you, and souls, mind you, strengthen Freddy. And it still plays a bit of a factor in the real world, just nowhere near as much. It's not also to the same level as, say, a Pennywise. Pennywise is much more needing your fear and stuff like that. If you can than Freddy is. Freddy can still fight relatively capably without you being afraid of him. Anyway, that said, I still got to go the Headless Horseman in this fight. It's just that because he's supernatural based, whereas Freddy was human then became supernatural. Well, they both did, but still. Because he's supernatural in terms of his durability, just like Freddy is in the dream world, there's not much Freddy. I mean, you can stab him repeatedly, but there's not much he can do. Eventually, the Horseman will get free and just cleave him. So I gotta go to Headless Horseman, surprisingly. Plus, it's not really specified what the Horseman's afraid of. Even if he was asleep, what's there for Freddy to really do to scare him? So, yeah, I gotta go with the Horseman, surprisingly. Freddy's a powerful guy, but only in the right context. Until then, though, that's my thoughts on that. I go to Headless Horseman. What do you think? Put in the comments below, let me know. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for what would win, Star Wars, superhero, magic, what if, anything to do with the channel. Put down in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to that at some point. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, folks.